The galaxy knew him as Corvith the Undying, a warlord who had crushed empires beneath his claws, a conqueror whose name sent entire star systems into panic. But now, he lay broken in the dirt, his armor shattered, his pride in ruins. And the one who found him wasn't a rival, wasn't an executioner, but a human woman in a sleek black bodysuit, her eyes sharp with defiance and something far more dangerous, pity. "You're coming with me," she said, as if ordering around a galactic terror was just another Tuesday. Corvith snarled, blood dripping from his fangs. "I do not surrender." She rolled her eyes. Yeah, save the drama." Then, with a grunt, she hauled his massive frame over her shoulder like a sack of potatoes. And that was how the most feared being in the cosmos became a 6-year-old girl's snugglebug. The galaxy would never be the same. Please wait. Before we start, tap that iCard button in the top right corner and smash that subscribe button. Right now. Hit the notification bell so you're first in line when new stories land. Alright, let's dive into the story. Chapter 1. The morning sun filtered through the dusty windows of the rusty anchor, casting long shadows across the creaky wooden floor. The air smelled of stale ale and fried fish, a combination that made Elias wrinkle his nose as he pushed open the door. The tavern was half empty, save for a few weathered sailors nursing their drinks and a bard tuning his lute in the corner. Elias slid onto a bar stool, his boots scraping against the floor. The bartender, a burly man with a scar running down his cheek, barely glanced up from wiping a glass. "What'll it be? Something strong enough to make me forget my problems," Elias muttered, tossing a silver coin onto the counter. The bartender smirked. "That'll cost you more than that, kid." Before Elias could retort, the door burst open, and a gust of wind sent napkins flying. A woman strode in, her dark cloak billowing behind her. She had the kind of presence that made people look twice. Sharp green eyes, a confident smirk, and a dagger strapped to her thigh. She dropped into the seat beside Elias like she owned the place. "To Alesh," she called to the bartender, then turned to Elias. "You look like you've got a story." Elias raised an eyebrow. "And you look like trouble." She laughed, tossing her braid over her shoulder. "Trouble's more fun. Name's Kira." "Elias." He hesitated, then added, "And I'm not in the mood for fun." Kira leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Word is you're looking for passage to Blackwater Cove. Dangerous place these days." Elias stiffened. "Who told you that?" "People talk." She took a sip of the ale the bartender slid her way. "Especially when a stranger's asking about cursed islands." Elias clenched his jaw. "It's personal." Kira's grin faded, replaced by something almost sympathetic. "Personal gets people killed. But lucky for you, I know a captain stupid enough to sail there." Elias eyed her. "What's the catch?" "No catch," she said, shrugging. "Just a split of whatever treasure you're after." "There's no treasure," Kira snorted. "There's always treasure. Or revenge. Or both." She stood, tossing a few coins on the bar. "Meet me at the docks at sundown. Don't be late. Captain's not a patient man." As she walked away, Elias stared into his drink. He hadn't come this far to turn back now. But something about Kira's confidence, or maybe the way she'd seen right through him, left him uneasy. The bard in the corner struck up a mournful tune, and Elias sighed. Whatever waited in Blackwater Cove, it was bound to be worse than he imagined. But he'd made a promise, and he intended to keep it, even if it got him killed. He downed the rest of his ale and stood, the weight of his decision settling on his shoulders like a storm cloud. Sundown wasn't far off, and he had a feeling his life was about to change forever. Chapter 2. The dim glow of the containment cell's force field cast flickering blue shadows across Corvith's scarred face. His massive frame, still clad in the tattered remnants of his battle armor, was hunched in a way that suggested exhaustion, but his golden eyes burned with undimmed fury. Every muscle in his body was coiled like a spring, ready to lash out the second an opportunity presented itself. The door hissed open, and Dr. Alara Voss stepped inside, her sleek black bodysuit accentuating her toned figure as she carried a tray of what smelled like human food. "You should eat," she said, setting the tray down just outside the energy barrier. "Unless you're planning to starve yourself out of spite, which, honestly, would be a pretty dumb way for the great Corvith the Undying to go." Corvitha's lip curled, revealing sharpened canines. "I do not take orders from humans, especially not from one who thinks trapping me in a cage is mercy." Alara sighed, rubbing her temple. "First of all, it's not a cage. It's a medically supervised recovery zone." She gestured to the biometric scanners lining the walls. "Second, if I hadn't dragged you here, you'd be space dust right now. So you're welcome." A low growl rumbled in Corvitha's chest. "I had no need of your intervention." "Yeah? Then why were you lying in a crater with half your organs hanging out?" She crossed her arms, unimpressed. "Face it, big guy. You lost." Before Corvith could retort, a small figure darted into the room, barely coming up to Alara's waist. Wild brown curls bounced as Mira skidded to a stop, her wide eyes locked on the alien warlord. "Whoa," she whispered, pressing her tiny hands against the glass observation panel. "He's huge." Alara groaned. "Mira, sweetie, you're supposed to be in the playroom, but Andy Lias said I could see the space monster." Corvitha's glare deepened. "Space monster." Mira grinned, completely unfazed by his menacing aura. "Do you breathe fire? Can you eat a whole planet?" "Do you, Mira?" Alara cut in, pinching the bridge of her nose. "He's not a storybook villain. He's a patient." The little girl tilted her head. "But he looks like a snugglebug." Corvitha's eye twitched. "And what?" Alara burst out laughing. "Oh, this is too good." Mira beamed. "See? His grumpy face is all scrunched up, like Mr. Fluffless when he doesn't want to take a bath." Corvith looked genuinely offended. "I'm not a pet." Alara smirked. "Could have fooled me." Mira, completely missing the tension, pointed at the untouched food tray. "Why isn't he eating? Is he allergic to peanut butter?" Alara shrugged. "Maybe he's just being dramatic." Corvith bared his teeth. "I do not do dramatic." Mira gasped. "You do. You sound just like Uncle Jake when he stubs his toe." A long, heavy silence followed. Then, against all odds, Corvith let out a sharp exhale, something dangerously close to a laugh. Alara blinked. "Wait, was that a chuckle?" Corvith immediately schooled his expression back into a scowl. "No." Mira giggled. "You did. You think I'm funny." Alara shook her head, grinning. "Well, that's a first." The infamous Galactic Warlord, taken down by a 6-year-old's jokes. Corvith muttered something under his breath, a curse in his native tongue, no doubt, but the rigid tension in his shoulders had eased, just a fraction. Mira, sensing victory, pressed her luck. "If you eat your sandwich, I'll draw you a picture." Corvith eyed the food with suspicion. "What is peanut butter?" Alara smirked. "Only the greatest human invention ever." Mira nodded sagely. "It's science." Corvith hesitated. Then, with the air of a man accepting his fate, he reached through the barrier and took the sandwich. One bite, then another. His eyes widened slightly. Alara crossed her arms, triumphant. "Told you." Mira clapped her hands. "Yay, now you have to let me draw you." Corvith swallowed, his pride warring with something unfamiliar, something dangerously close to amusement. "Fine." Alara raised an eyebrow. "Wow, first peanut butter, now art requests?" Next thing you know, he'll be asking for bedtime stories. Corvith's growl returned. "Never." Mira giggled. "We'll see, Snugglebug." And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy's most feared warlord found himself outmatched. Chapter 3. The storm had passed, but the tension aboard the Siren's wrath hadn't eased. Elias gripped the ship's rail, his knuckles white as he stared at the mist-shrouded silhouette of Blackwater Cove looming in the distance. The air smelled of salt and something darker, something rotten. Kira sidled up beside him, her usual smirk absent. "Nervous?" Elias didn't look at her. just wondering how many fools have sailed to that island and never returned. Enough to fill a graveyard, came a gravelly voice behind them. Captain Rourke, a grizzled man with a patch over one eye, spat over the side of the ship. But you paid for a passage, not a guarantee. Kira rolled her eyes. Charming as ever, Captain. Rourke ignored her, squinting at the island. Tides, it ain't the island that kills you first. It's what's on it. Elias frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Before Rourke could answer, a shout rang out from the crow's nest. Movement in the water. Starboard side. The crew rushed to the rail, and Elias's stomach dropped. Dark shapes slithered beneath the waves, long, sinuous, and far too large to be fish. One broke the surface, revealing a glimpse of scaled flesh and rows of needle-like teeth. Kira coast on a herpel. Sea serpents. Of course. Rourke barked orders. Full sails. Get us to the damn shore before they decide we're dinner. The ship lurched forward, but the creatures kept pace, their bodies cutting through the water like knives. Elias grabbed a harpoon from a nearby barrel, his heart pounding. Any bright ideas? Kira drew her dagger, her grin returning. Stab them. Helpful. One of the serpents lunged, its massive jaws snapping just inches from the deck. A crewman screamed as another wrapped itself around the hull, wood groaning under the pressure. Rourke roared, swinging an axe at the creature's head. Stop gawking and fight, you idiots. Elias drove the harpoon into the serpent's side, black blood spraying across the deck. The beast recoiled with a shriek, but two more took its place. Kira ducked as a tail whipped overhead, then flipped her dagger in her hand. You know, this would be a really bad time to mention you can't swim. Elias shot her a glare. I can swim. Prove it. She grabbed his arm and yanked him aside, just as a serpent's fangs sank into the mast where he'd been standing. The ship shuddered, and for a terrifying moment, Elias thought they were done for. Then, with a final heave, the siren's wrath scraped onto the rocky shore, throwing everyone to the deck. Silence fell, broken only by the distant hiss of the serpents retreating into the depths. Kira groaned, pushing herself up. Well, that was fun. Elias wiped serpent blood from his face, glaring at the dense jungle ahead. Worse than I imagined. Better than I hoped. Rourke staggered to his feet, cursing. You two are not getting a refund. Kira laughed, but Elias didn't join in. The island was waiting. And whatever haunted Blackwater Cove, it was closer now than ever. Chapter 4. The jungle swallowed them whole the moment they stepped off the beach. Thick vines snaked between towering trees, their leaves blocking out what little sunlight pierced the mist. The air was heavy, damp, and carried the faint scent of decay. Elias swatted at a buzzing insect the size of his thumb, grimacing as it darted away. Kira hacked through a tangle of undergrowth with her dagger, her boots sinking into the spongy earth. Remind me again why we didn't just stay on the ship? Because the captain threatened to maroon us if we didn't leave, Elias muttered, ducking under a low-hanging branch. She snorted. Right. And here I thought it was because you've got a death wish. Before Elias could retort, a sharp crack echoed through the trees. They froze. The jungle had gone eerily silent. No birds, no insects, just the rustle of leaves and a wind that wasn't there. Kira's hand went to her dagger. That wasn't an animal. Elias nodded, his pulse quickening. And it wasn't far. Another crack, closer this time. Then a low, guttural growl. Something moved in the shadows, something big. Kira backed up slowly. Run or fight? Run, Elias said without hesitation. They bolted just as the creature lunged from the undergrowth. Elias caught a glimpse of matted fur, yellowed fangs, and too many eyes before he was sprinting blindly through the trees. Branches whipped at his arms, roots threatened to trip him, but he didn't dare look back. Kira cursed as she vaulted over a fallen log. What was that? Does it matter? Elias gasped. A roar shook the jungle behind them, followed by the sound of snapping wood. The thing was gaining. Kira skidded to a stop near a moss-covered ruin, a crumbling stone archway half buried in the earth. In here, Elias didn't argue. They squeezed through the narrow opening just as the creature slammed into the arch, snarling in frustration. The ancient stone held, but dust rained down around them as the beast clawed at the entrance. Panting, Elias pressed his back against the wall. That was too close. Kira wiped sweat from her brow, grinning despite the situation. Admit it, you're having fun. He shot her a glare. Fun? We're being hunted by a monster in a cursed jungle. She shrugged. Still better than drinking alone in that tavern. The creature outside let out one last furious roar before stomping away, its footsteps fading into the distance. The silence that followed was almost worse. Elias peered into the darkness beyond the archway. A narrow tunnel stretched ahead, lined with strange carvings that glowed faintly in the dim light. You think this leads somewhere? Kira traced one of the carvings with her finger. Only one way to find out. Elias hesitated. Or we could go back, take our chances with the monster. She smirked. Where's your sense of adventure? Back on the ship, he muttered, but he followed her anyway. The tunnel sloped downward, the air growing colder with every step. The carvings seemed to pulse, their glow intensifying as they descended. Elias couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. Then the tunnel opened into a vast chamber, and his breath caught. In the center of the room stood an altar, its surface stained with something dark. Above it, suspended in midair by some unseen force, was a jagged black shard, the same one from Elias's nightmares. Kira whistled low. Well, that's not ominous at all. Elias stepped forward, drawn to the shard despite every instinct screaming at him to run. This is what I came for. Kira grabbed his arm. Hold on. You didn't say anything about creepy floating artifacts. He shook her off. I didn't know it would be here, but I have to take it. Before she could argue, a voice echoed through the chamber, dry, ancient, and dripping with malice. And so the thief returns. Elias spun around, but the chamber was empty. The voice came again, this time from everywhere at once. Did you think you could steal from me twice? Kira's dagger was out in an instant. Okay, now I'm worried. The ground trembled. The carvings flared bright red, and Elias realized, too late, that they'd walked straight into a trap. Chapter 5. The alarms blared through the sanctuary, painting the walls in flashing crimson. Alera's fingers flew across the control panel, her face set in grim determination as she monitored the approaching fleet. They're breaching the outer perimeter, she muttered, her voice tight. Corvith, we need to move now. Corvith stood motionless by the viewport, his massive frame silhouetted against the chaos unfolding outside. Ships bearing the jagged insignia of his former empire descended like vultures, their weapons charging. Raxus always was impatient. He rumbled, claws flexing. He should have waited until I was dead. Mira clung to Alera's leg, her small hands trembling. Are the bad guys here to take Snugglebug away? Alera scooped her up with one arm, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Not if we have anything to say about it, kiddo. She tossed Corvith a plasma rifle from the weapons locker. You know how to use one of these. Or do you just prefer ripping people apart barehanded? Corvith caught it midair, examining the weapon with disdain. This is a child's toy compared to what I wielded. Yeah, well, it's what we've got. Alera adjusted her grip on her own rifle, her jaw set. Unless you'd rather sit this one out? His golden eyes flashed. You mock me even now? I mock you especially now. She flashed a grin, though it didn't reach her eyes. Keeps you from brooding. A thunderous impact rocked the compound, sending debris raining from the ceiling. Mira yelped, burying her face in Alera's shoulder. Corvitha's nostrils flared. They will not stop until I am dead, or until everyone around me is. His gaze flicked to Mira, then back to Alera. You should take her and flee. I will hold them off. Alera's grip tightened on her weapon. Not a chance. This is my home, and those are my people out there getting shot at. She jerked her chin toward the door. So unless you're planning to betray us the second we step outside, quit wasting time. For a heartbeat, Corvith didn't move. Then, with a sound that was almost a laugh, he hefted the rifle. You are the most infuriating creature I have ever met. Takes one to know one. She shifted Mira to her other hip. Stay behind me, both of you. And try not to get shot. I just fixed you up. The door exploded inward before they could take a step. Admiral Raxus stood framed in the smoke, his armored form bristling with weapons. His scarred face twisted into a sneer as he spotted Corvith. Pathetic, hiding behind humans now. Corvith stepped forward, his voice a lethal purr. I was just coming to kill you. How convenient. Raxus barked a laugh. You? Weak, wounded, unarmed. He raised his pulse cannon. I'll enjoy watching you die after I slaughter your new pets. Mira whimpered, and something in Corvith snapped. He moved faster than should have been possible for something his size. The plasma rifle discharged once, a distraction, before he lunged, claws outstretched. Raxus barely had time to widen his eyes before Corvith was on him, tearing through armor like paper. Alara shielded Myra's eyes, but she couldn't look away as Corvith lifted Raxus bodily and slammed him into the wall. You should have stayed away, Corvith growled, his voice thick with something darker than rage. Raxus choked out a laugh, blood bubbling at his lips. Look at you, defending them. The great Corvith gone soft. Corvith's grip tightened. No. He leaned in, his next words barely audible. I've simply found something worth fighting for. The crack of Raxus' spine echoed through the room. Silence fell, broken only by Myra's quiet sniffles. Corvith turned slowly, his claws still dripping, to find Alara staring at him with an unreadable expression. Well, she said after a beat, her voice oddly steady. That was efficient. Corvith exhaled sharply, the tension draining from his shoulders. You are not afraid? Alara glanced down at Mira, then back at him. Should I be? Mira peeked through her fingers. Did Snugglebug win? Something in Corvith's chest twisted at the name. He looked at his claws, then at the two humans watching him. Not with fear, but with something dangerously close to trust. Yes, he said quietly. He won. Alara nodded toward the smoking ruins of the door. Good. Now let's go clean up the rest of his mess. And for the first time in his long, bloody existence, Corvith followed without argument. Chapter 6. The cavern trembled violently as the ancient entity's laughter echoed off the walls, deep and thunderous. Rocks shattered from the ceiling, crashing around them like hail. Elias barely managed to dodge a falling stalactite, his heart hammering against his ribs. Kira grabbed his arm, yanking him toward a narrow crevice in the wall. Move, unless you fancy being crushed. They barely squeezed through as the chamber behind them collapsed in a roar of dust and debris. The passage ahead was tight, the air thick with the scent of damp stone and something metallic, like old blood. Elias coughed, wiping grit from his eyes. That thing, it knew me. How? Kira shot him a sideways glance as they hurried forward. You mean besides the whole thief comment? Maybe because you did steal from it before. I'd remember that. Would you? She ducked under a low-hanging rock. Because that shard back there? It's got your name written all over it. Literally. Elias froze. What? Kira sighed. The carvings. They change when you touch the altar. Symbols rearranged into Elias of Blackwater. Ring any bells? His stomach twisted. Fragments of nightmares flashed in his mind. A shipwreck. A desperate bargain. A voice whispering in the dark. No, that's not possible. A low growl rumbled through the tunnel, not from ahead, but from behind. Something scraped against stone, slow and deliberate. Kira's grip on her dagger tightened. Run now. Existential crisis later. They sprinted through the twisting passage, the thing behind them gaining with every step. Its breath was hot on their necks, reeking of salt and rotting meat. The tunnel spat them out onto a jagged cliffside, the ocean roaring hundreds of feet below. No bridge, no escape, just a monster emerging from the shadows, a hulking mass of sinew and jagged bone, its hollow eyes fixed on Elias. Kira backed toward the edge, peering down. Well, this is bad. Elias's mind raced. The shard in his pocket burned like ice against his thigh. The creature took a step forward, its maw splitting into a grotesque smile. You cannot run this time, it hissed. The pact demands your life. Kira blinked. Pact? Elias, what did you do? I don't. The memory hit him like a tidal wave. The shipwreck, drowning, the desperate plea to anything that would listen. Oh gods, I did steal from it. The creature lunged. Kira acted faster, shoving Elias aside and slashing her dagger across the beast's face. It howled, recoiling but not for long. She shot Elias a wild grin. Got a plan yet? He fumbled for the shard, its surface now glowing violently. Maybe, but you're not going to like it. Worse than dying? Depends on your opinion of jumping off cliffs. The creature surged forward again. Elias grabbed Kira's hand and jumped. The wind screamed in their ears as they plummeted. Kira's curses were lost in the roar of the ocean below until the shard flared bright and the world twisted. They hit water, but not the sea, a shallow pool in another cavern, the impact knocking the breath from Elias's lungs. He gasped, flailing as he surfaced. Kira popped up beside him, spluttering. What in the seven hells was that? Elias held up the shard, its glow fading. A shortcut. She stared at him, then burst out laughing. You're insane. I hate you. A distant roar echoed from above. The creature wasn't done. Kira hauled herself out of the water, shaking like a wet dog. Next time, warn me before you drag me into a death leap. Elias scrambled up after her. Next time, there won't be The ground beneath them gave way. They fell again, this time into darkness. Chapter 7. Elias hit the ground hard, the impact driving the air from his lungs in a pained gasp. The shard tumbled from his grip, skittering across the stone floor with an eerie chime. Above them, the creature's furious roars faded into the distance. They'd fallen somewhere deeper, somewhere even the monster couldn't follow. Kira groaned, rolling onto her back. If I live through this, I'm going to kill you myself. Elias coughed, pushing himself up onto his elbows. Noted, the chamber around them was vast, lit by an unnatural blue glow emanating from veins of crystal embedded in the walls. At its center stood a massive, circular door covered in the same strange carvings they'd seen before. Only now, the symbols pulsed with light, reacting to the shard's presence. Kira sat up, wincing as she rubbed her shoulder. Where in the blazes are we now? Elias crawled toward the shard, his fingers trembling as he picked it up. The heart of the island. The moment he touched it, the carvings on the door flared brighter, lines of light racing toward the center like threads being pulled taut. Kira's eyes narrowed. You recognize this place? He didn't answer. The memories were coming faster now, fragments of a past he'd buried. The shipwreck, the deal, the lie. She grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at her. Elias, what aren't you telling me? His voice was hollow. This isn't just a cursed island. It's a prison. And he swallowed hard. I helped lock something away here. Kira went very still. What? The door groaned, its ancient mechanisms shuddering to life. The carvings twisted, forming a single, glaring eye, the same symbol that had haunted Elias's nightmares. A voice, deeper than the earth itself, shook the chamber. You return at last, Oathbreaker. Kira backed up, dagger raised. Okay, new plan. We leave. Now. Elias didn't move. It won't let us. The door split open with a sound like breaking bone. Beyond it stretched darkness. Not empty, but alive, shifting like ink in water. The voice laughed. You stole from me. You begged for your life and swore to serve. And then you fled, little thief. Kira's grip on her weapon tightened. Elias, whatever you're thinking, don't. He turned the shard over in his hand. I didn't just steal from it. I stole part of it. His fingers clenched around the shard. Its name. The darkness surged forward, tendrils lashing out like whips. Kira sliced through one, but another wrapped around her ankle, yanking her off her feet. Elias lunged, slamming the shard into the door's central carving. I get it back. The world exploded in light. The darkness shrieked, recoiling as the shard dissolved into the door. The carvings blazed white-hot, then shattered, collapsing into dust. The voice howled, not in fury, but in fear. No. Then silence. The door was gone. The chamber stood empty, save for Elias and Kira, sprawled on the ground, breathing hard. Kira sat up slowly, staring at the spot where the door had been. What did you just do? Elias exhaled, his whole body shaking. Close the cage. The island trembled, not in anger, but in release. Somewhere above, sunlight pierced the cavern's ceiling for the first time in centuries. Kira let out a disbelieving laugh. You're telling me we nearly died because you forgot you stole a demon's name? Elias rubbed his face. In my defense, I was drowning at the time. She shook her head, grinning despite herself. You're insufferable. A distant sound caught their attention. Waves. Not the angry roar of the sea around Blackwater Cove, but the gentle crash of water against sand. Kira stood, offering him a hand. Come on, let's go home. Elias took it, letting her pull him up. For the first time in years, the weight on his shoulders was gone. As they climbed toward the light, he realized something. He remembered the way out. And this time, he wasn't running. And that was the end of the story. Comment below if you want the next chapter, and hit that like button. Please subscribe, turn on the bell, and as always, keep the last light burning.